Alright, in this tutorial we want to get you started using Photoshop and setting up the icon in your dock. I realize some of you may know how to do this, but I want to go through it for those that may need a refresher. We need to go to your applications folder. Now how you do that is up to you. You can go down to the dock here, or if you already have your hard drive icon showing up here, you could go there and go to the applications folder as well. I'm going to go down here because that's what most of you will do. And when you find Photoshop, click on it once like I just did, not double click, and you will get the icon for Photoshop, and you want this big icon here. Then you want to drag and drop that onto the dock and then place it where you want it on the dock. Now I prefer to keep my imaging type applications together, and I'll put it down here. Now I already have it on my dock, and the control system on our computers is keeping me from having my icons aligned the way I like them. Now, so that's what we're doing, is just drag and drop that program icon onto the dock. And I've already got it there, so that wasn't necessary for my computer. Once you have it, again, all items on the dock are single click to start. You don't double click them, just one click, and that'll get the application started. Now the interface, if you haven't used Photoshop before, is a little complex and busy at times, but nothing that we can't get through. By the end of the quarter, everybody will have a fairly good grip on it. What I want to do here is show you a sample document and some of the basic tools to get you started with your first assignment, which will probably be the collage. So I'm going to start a new document by going to File, New, and sometimes we can accept the default Photoshop size, but I'm going to go for a bigger one here because I want to do a collage, and I'm going to do a photo document, which is a high quality one, and I'm going to choose the size, and I'll select right now Portrait 8x10. You could go Landscape 8x10, but I'm going to do Portrait. And I'm just going to hit OK. I never name it at this point because it seems like you always end up having to name it anyway, so I don't bother at this point naming the document. Alright, now I'm going to start out by showing you a few of the drawing tools and coloring options and some things like that just to get you started, so we're going to keep it simple to start with here. The first tool that's highlighted on my toolbar is the marquee. All of the tools that have this tiny little disclosure triangle in the lower corner, that tells you that that's hiding more tools there, and if you click and hold on it, it will show you the tools that are available. Mine was a rectangular marquee, so I'm going to go with that to start with here. Now the marquee can be used for a lot of things, but for basic use, what you can do is draw like a rectangle or a square with it, and I'm just going to do this to show you some shapes and colors here. I can fill this rectangular marquee now with a color, and to do that I'm going to go to my paint bucket tool, which is paired with the gradient tool here. So if I click and hold on this, I can go to my paint bucket tool, and I can change my colors. Here's my color swatches. The foreground color is set to this right now, and the background color is set to this. Now I'm a little concerned because of the colors here that I don't have a black and white document started, so I'm going to check that by going to Image, Mode, and it is set to RGB color, so that'll be okay. I just was a little worried it was grayscale by the colors that were pre-selected here. I'm going to pick just a random color now. I'm going to select a red just by clicking here and saying OK. So when I click inside this marquee, it's going to fill that with red. Now you'll notice the outside of this marquee is still highlighted. The way to deselect an object in Photoshop is to go back to the tool that made the selection, select it, and right click inside and go deselect. Okay, so now we've got a red rectangle on our screen. You'll notice that I've got layers over here, and right now we have just a background layer, and that red rectangle is on that background layer with an otherwise white background. I'm going to create a new layer. Now there's multiple ways. There's probably at least 4 ways to do things in Photoshop, so any one way I show you, there are other ways to do it. For instance, to create a new layer, you could do a Command-Shift-N to do a new layer, but I'm just going to select Layer here. And I'm going to leave the name of that as Layer 1 for now, but sometimes it's handy to name that. So I'm going to hit OK. And you'll notice over in the right here now, we have a Layer 1 above our background. So I'm going to go ahead and create another shape here just to show how these layers work. I'm going to choose an elliptical marquee this time, which will give us kind of a circle. And I'm going to go over part of that rectangle with that and select a size here, just a random size. Now you notice when I did this, I have the Layer 1 selected. Now I'm going to go back and fill this to start to demonstrate how these layers work on here. So I'm going to go back to my Fill tool, and I'm going to grab a different color here this time. Let's go with like a blue of some kind here. I'm going to say OK, and now I'm going to click to fill. And you'll notice now that my blue circle is covering up my red rectangle, and that's because layer 1 is on top of my background. And we'll do some more here to illustrate how this is working. And again, to deselect that circle, I'm going to go back to the tool that made it, right click inside of it and deselect. Now let's create another layer here, and let me try the Command Shift N, and it created a new layer, and I'll just let that be called layer 2 and hit OK. And again, there's layer 2, and it wants to put it on top of the other layers, which is fine. I'll draw, maybe I'll do something with the brush this time. I'll just take a standard brush, and I'll select that. And this is a very large brush now. I can do two things. I can change the size of it right here. It's at 300 right now. Or I can right-click on the screen and use a slider to change the size. And then you can see it shows you the size change as you go down the slider. So I'm going to select a fairly decent size one here just for illustration. And we're going to go with we'll see what happens here now. See, I've got blue selected, so it's going to do blue. I'm going to do a Command Z to undo that. And let's change this to like a green or something. Hit OK. And now notice I'm working on layer 2 because it's highlighted. So when I do this, and again, this is looking like a third grader drawing on a computer here, but it's all for the sake of example. Notice layer 3 is on top of layer 1 and the background, so it's covering everything. Now, one of the things you should realize is that you can sort these layers. If I take layer 2 now and drag it down under layer 1, notice that the blue circle on layer 1 now is covering the green of layer 2 there. So you can sort those, and the top layer is always going to cover up the bottom layers. Now, I can't do much with the background now, but I could convert that to a regular layer just by double-clicking it. And it says, okay, are you creating a new layer? And I want to say okay. And that becomes now another layer just like the others. So I could sort this, and I could take layer 1 now and sort it all the way to the bottom. But notice what's happening here. Layer 1 is full of white here, so it's going to cover up my blue circle, and you can see it's not visible here right now. Now, I could get rid of that white. One of the things I could do is do the magic eraser here and make sure I've got the correct layer selected. And when I click on that, it makes all the white disappear. Now, layer 1, which is our base layer here, has no background color. None of these layers have a background color, so we just get this random, it's an empty background basically. If I wanted to fill that background now with something, I could go back and I could, actually what we'll do here, we'll do a Command Shift N for a new layer. And I'll just put BG for background here, and we'll create a new background layer. And I'll drag that to the bottom of the list. And let's fill that, only this time instead of a solid color like we had white there, let's go to a marquee color here. So a gradient. We'll do gradient. And whatever colors I have selected down here will make up the gradient. Right now it's a green and gray. So for the heck of it, let's go with that. And you can drag these marquees left to right, up to down, or corner to corner. I'll go corner to corner from the bottom here, up this way. And it gives us kind of that gradient, that mix of green and gray here, where green flows into gray. And you can see the effect we have on the background now. Okay, so those are some of the basic tools. We also want to get into text here a little bit. And to create text, I simply click. Now I'm going to go up on an upper layer here, and I'm going to click on my document. And you can see actually that it created a new layer 3, which is a text layer. And you can see up here I've got a marker felt font, thin, 78 point, and the color right now looks like a dark gray or something to me. Let's do something that's plenty visible. We'll just do another red here. And so when I start typing, we get our text. Now, we can do a lot of things with this. I tell people not to get excited too much about the size of the font or where it's located, because once you've typed it, we can do a lot of things with it. I'm going to go back to our Move tool, and oddly enough, I haven't really used the Move tool yet. It's the most common tool you'll use. When I click on that, I can now grab Photoshop and put it wherever I want. Notice how it blends into the red there of our rectangular marquee. We can do some things with this Photoshop. We can change the size of it. You can go Transform, Scale, and if I hold the Shift key down in the lower right corner, I can scale that up or down. And one of the things you need to do now is, now that I've changed the size of it, if you click on the Move tool again, it'll ask you, do you want to apply that transformation? And in this case, I'm going to say yes. So I'm going to apply. If you hit don't apply, it'll just go back to the way it was. All right, and again, I can move it wherever I want. I could rotate it, edit, transform, rotate, and I could change the angle on that. And again, click the Move tool, apply. So those are a couple things you can do. You can also do some word wrap here. If I go back to, let me go back a couple steps here, and actually this brings me to another point. There's a great window here called History. It's like an infinite undo. Here's all the changes I've made to this document, and I can go back to any one of them, and you can see what it's doing to my document. And I can click any one of those layers that I want. Now I'm going to go back to Type tool, where I first typed Photoshop, and I'm going to make sure that I've got my Type tool selected, and I'm going to click on here and highlight it. Now there's a word warped text tool here, and I'm going to select a warp option, and there are many options and each one has its own adjustments. I'm just going to go with a basic arch for now, and there's obviously several options here, but I'm just going to show you basically how this works. And you can see what it does to our text, and then we can adjust some things on here. How much it bends, distortion, vertical distortion. So there's a lot of things that we can adjust on these to customize your text. I'm just going to select OK for now. Now if I decide I don't like that, again, I can go to my history window and back up a couple steps, but I'm going to leave that alone for the sake of example. Alright, at this point I'm going to stop with this because I don't want these tutorials. This one's already been long. I'm going to start another one now that talks about what we can do with pictures. So we'll see you on the next tutorial.